Right now in WRAL News, hundreds of people take to the streets of Durham in protest. People are outraged over a decision not to indict a white New York City police officer in the death of a black suspect. It began peacefully, but now we are seeing our first arrests. Hello, I'm Gerald Owens.
And I'm Deborah Morgan in for Jackie tonight. We've been following this protest since they began just around 7 o'clock tonight.
WRAL's Ken Smith has been in the middle of the action all night. He joins us live now with an update. Ken?
Gerald and Deborah, Durham police officers just took away about 6 or 7 demonstrators who were arrested a short time ago. I'll get out of the way so photographer Mark Simpson can help us set the scene currently. Right now, Magnum Street is completely shut down with demonstrators. We're walking through the crowd, as you see. Many of them have been here since 7 o'clock tonight. This all started out at CCB Plaza with a peaceful demonstration. Dozens, hundreds of people actually gathered at the plaza. They were just talking and raising concerns and about their frustrations about the recent deaths of Michael Brown and Eric Garner. They stayed there for about an hour and a half, and about 8:30 tonight, they started moving, and they walked down Pettigrew, they came down Blackwell. Eventually, they made their way onto the Durham Freeway, shutting down both lanes of the Durham Freeway. At one point, they staged what they call a die-in demonstration on both lanes of the Durham Freeway. Dozens of demonstrators were lying in the street for a few minutes. After a while, they got up and they started moving again. They made their way off the Durham Freeway onto Chapel Hill Street, went past the Durham Police Department, did not disturb the Durham Police Department, and they also did not disturb any of the passengers in cars that they passed on the Durham Freeway or Chapel Hill Street. As we move through the crowd now, you can see the chanting continues to begin. They eventually made their way here to the DPAC, which there are a couple of shows tonight. There was a show at 7:30, and there is a show that was supposed to start at 10 o'clock tonight. When the demonstrators made their way to the DPAC, amazingly, a number of people waiting to get into the DPAC started applauding in a show of support for many of the demonstrators that were going on. At that point, up until that point, it was still very peaceful. But shortly after that, the Durham police officers, some of the SWAT team members moved in, tried to get the demonstrators to move. They did not want to move. They pushed back against the police officers, and then that's when a struggle between at least 6 or 7 demonstrators ensued. They were immediately arrested. What you're seeing now are Durham police officers setting up a perimeter. Many of the guys and women you see there now are part of the SWAT team. They have basically made a perimeter around the demonstrators here on Mangum Street. At this point, demonstrators are continuing to chant. They continue to hold up their signs, but we're not seeing any incidents of unrest so far since the 4 or 5 or 6 people who were arrested and have been taken away at this point.
Hey, Ken, I'm seeing babies and children in strollers. Talk about the crowd. Talk about the crowd for a minute, Ken. I'm seeing young children in this crowd at 10 o'clock at night. It's a different kind of crowd, I guess, than we've seen in the past. I'm seeing a lot of young people and young families out there.
This is a crowd that's made up of young, old, moms, dad. Many families have brought their children. At one point, a baby in a stroller almost got caught up in the scuffle that I talked about between police officers and several of the demonstrators who were arrested, but they were able to get that baby in the stroller out of the way. But yeah, there are all ethnic groups represented here, all ages, young and old, and interestingly enough, I have seen a number of families as well, all here. But as you can see from this live picture being provided by photographer Mark Simpson, they're just continuing their chants and holding up their signs. At this point, we do not know how long this will go on, but we'll be here and keep you posted and let you know exactly what happens as this demonstration tonight unfolds. Deborah and Gerald.
Ken, have you been able to get a count on how many police officers are out there? We saw police officers on bikes, on the Segways, now in this riot gear, in police cars themselves. So it looks as though the police were ready for this protest.
Absolutely. They were absolutely I think everybody on the Durham police force are on duty tonight. There were police officers on bicycles, part of the police officers in riot gear, police officers in plain clothes, working through this crowd. So there have been a number of huge police presence with this demonstration. And we were told earlier that Durham police, according to some of our sources, they were expecting a large crowd and they were prepared. And that's why there's such a large police presence here on Mangum Street and throughout this event that's happened since 7 o'clock tonight, Deborah.
Yeah, I was at the American Tobacco tonight for the tower lighting, and word was spreading then at around 7:30 that a protest was building then. So certainly a lot of people knew this was happening, and here we see the results of it. Major protest in front of the DPAC tonight. We're going to continue to follow this. Ken, we'll be back with you a little bit later in this newscast. Ken Smith reporting live from the ground of a major protest down there in Durham.
And we spoke just a short time ago with the deputy chief of the Durham Police Department about the situation unfolding there tonight.
We want to protect people's First Amendment rights to demonstrate, but at the same token, we have to have some balance in that with the laws.
Durham police said they were prepared for the protest and things went smoothly as could be expected to this point. And at this point, no property damage has been damaged.
The protests are being held across the nation tonight. This is the scene in New York City. Hours of peaceful protests began to escalate there, and reaching a boiling point, there have been several scuffles that have broken out, but nothing violent so far. Holiday shopping was also disrupted in New York City. Take a look at the large number of protesters who took over Macy's in Herald Square.
Protesters were also back out tonight in Boston. It's the second night in a row demonstrators have marched through the streets there. Protesters also stopped traffic by lying in the street, certainly a symbol of this movement to bring attention to what they call police brutality.
This is what the protests in Cleveland, Ohio look like tonight. Crowds gathering in downtown, sometimes blocking major intersections, lying in the roads there as well. For the most part, the protests have been peaceful, but officers continue to be on standby in case things get out of control.
Today, students at NC State held their own protest, a demonstration called Black Lives Matter. Some students laid down on the ground to represent those killed, and afterwards, students marched along Avon Ferry Road and Western Boulevard carrying signs. The head of the New York City Police Union says officers feel like they are being thrown under the bus. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio says the case underscores the NYPD's need to improve relations with minorities. But rank-and-file officers argue Eric Garner played a role in his own death by resisting arrest and say his poor health was a factor. A medical examiner ruled Garner's death a homicide. We will continue to monitor tonight's demonstrations. We will be bringing you more live updates throughout this hour. Our breaking news continues now in Durham, where police appear to be trying to break up the protest going on right now in front of the Durham Performing Arts Center. And what began as a peaceful protest it seems to be, it's heating up a little bit. Ken Smith is down there on the streets with the protesters. Ken, we've already seen 6 or 7 arrests. What's the situation like now?
Well, right now they're trying to disperse the crowd. Take a look at the police officers in riot gear advancing down Magnum Street. They've been blowing a huge, loud whistle and then announcing that the demonstrators are required to disperse immediately. But what has happened, instead of dispersing, the demonstrators have decided to be on the move again, so they're going down Magnum. I'm not sure exactly where they headed. I'm not sure if they headed back to the CCB Plaza, but we will walk along with them. But at this point, Durham police officers are trying to disperse and end this demonstration. But it's not looking like it's going very well. Demonstrators are continuing to march. They're continuing to beat their drums, and they're continuing to chant up and down the streets. Apparently, they're making a left turn, which tells me that they're heading back toward the CCB Plaza. Go ahead, Deborah.
I'm just wondering, does there appear to be a leader of this protest, or is it disorganized, or is there one group trying to lead the way here?
It appears to be a group. There's no one particular leader, but there seems to be a group of people who are leading the charge, and those folks are following, and everybody else is following this particular group. I think some of the leaders in that group were part of the ones who were arrested earlier this evening. But I just found out a little while ago that the folks that were taken into custody, at this point, they're just being held. They have not been officially arrested yet. At least that's the word we're getting for right now. At this point, they're just being held in custody.
And Ken,
but again, Durham police officers are advancing, trying to disperse this crowd.
It seems as though the protesters are heeding their warnings and they're moving along. So I guess in that respect, you could say that they're cooperating with police officers.
Well, yeah. The thing is that concerns me and that concerns a lot of people out here is that at some point, these officers could intermingle with these demonstrators. And I think that's what the Durham police officers are trying to avoid, a confrontation. And as long as the demonstrators continue to move, as you can see, the police officers are advancing. And right now, I don't see the demonstrators at all. They've made a left turn and are apparently heading back down to the CCB Plaza. As you see right now, the Durham police officers in their riot gear have stopped. So they have not blown that whistle for the last 5 minutes. So I'm not sure if they're feeling that maybe this is over for right now. But that's a scene as you're seeing it right along with us.
All right, Ken, we'll stay on top of that for us, and we'll check back with you in this newscast. What appears to be the tensest protest that we've seen for some time here, at least since these have started last 7-10 days or so.
It is really remarkable to watch, to know that that's happening in downtown Durham right now. But as of right now, no reports of any injuries, no vandalism. So it does seem that it is staying peaceful. So we hope that it continues to be that way for sure.